Hey everyone, welcome back to Wild Farms, and today we're going to be getting into a new video. And before we get into the video, please go on and click the thumbs up button, subscribe to the channel if you're new here. Let's go on and get into the video. Good evening, everyone. Welcome back to another Wildwoods Beekeeping live stream / podcast. Thank you all for joining in live, and if you're watching on the replay, I appreciate y'all as well. Tonight I have Michael from 21st Bee joining on tonight as my special guest. So, thank you very much, Michael, for spending some time with us tonight.
Yeah, it's no problem.
Greatly appreciated. So to start out this chat, I would appreciate if you would just kind of briefly share with us a little bit about yourself and kind of how you got into beekeeping, if you could.
Okay, so this is my about 13th year of beekeeping. Originally, I never really thought about getting into bees. I went to college for zoology. I've always been into animals and insects of some kind, and did work on my zoology stuff. Did some work with large animals at like the Oklahoma City Zoo, like hippos and black rhinos and elephants. Worked with some tigers at a tiger refuge in Texas, did some internships, and just ended up back here, manufacturing. But I got to get my animal fix in somewhere. And one day I was at a bookstore and I saw this post up on the cork board basically for a local beekeeping class. Thought I'd go check it out. Went to it and it seemed interesting. Started reading and learning what I could for a couple years before I got into them. And then, one day my wife was nice enough to allow me to get a nuke of bees without throwing a big fit about it. She's scared to death of them, so that was a big deal to let me get them. And ever since then, I've had bees. I tracked the years by my youngest son was just a little baby when I got my first one, so that's how I keep track of how long I've had him, is by how old he actually is. And now, I'm doing the manufacturing thing. It's our family business. So I've kind of found a way to incorporate, beekeeping into it a little bit and kind of be in both worlds at the same time. And I mean, that's pretty much it. I mean, I've always been a gardener, and I really got tired of having to hand pollinate a lot of my squash and zucchinis. Like every morning before I go to work, I'd have to get out there for a little paintbrush because I didn't have honeybees around me anywhere. So seeing that flyer and having the fight in my garden, it just kind of went together and everything just kind of fell in place.
Awesome. How many colonies do you have currently?
Well, I just had one of my small ones get completely robbed out by my biggest one the other day. So I think I'm around 15 or 16.
15? Yeah.
I usually try to stay, because I'm so busy at work, 20 is a kind of a good number for me. And I used to have more, and I'd have them spread out at different yards. But work takes up so much time. I moved everything back to the house this year. So my nice, really big garden doesn't have anything in it but bees now. So 20 is probably the max I could squeeze in there and still make it workable. But it seems like I'm able to keep up with it pretty well. So that's just kind of a good number for my spot.
Mm-hmm. I have 13, so we're kind of similar in numbers.
Yeah.
So you are in Arkansas, right?
Yeah, in Van Buren. It's basically I'm on the Arkansas-Oklahoma border on the very
Mm.
far west side. I mean, I can get to like I-40 in about 7 or 8 minutes from my house. So that's kind of where you can kind of think. I mean, I'm in the River Valley areas where I work, but my house is up in the hills. There's like a good 5 degree temperature difference. So when I do have bees here up there, like things are like 2 weeks completely different schedules of what I'm working.
Hmm. Yeah, I'm sure y'all probably have a significant dearth as well as we do.
Yeah, I think our seasons and weather's pretty similar to yours. You know, we have that good flow that kicks in early,
Yeah.
and by about the 4th of July, things start to kind of dry up. And then we're in a hard dearth until usually the fall goldenrod starts to come in. But the last couple of years, the summer rains, it's been so dry, we haven't really had much in the way of goldenrod. We've had to actually feed where I usually don't have to going into the fall. But this year's looking good. We've gotten so much rain. I'd actually probably get a bumper crop of goldenrod again this year, if I had to guess.
Yeah, because usually down here we're kind of the same. Early we'll get a good amount of a pretty good flow. And this year we got a pretty good spring flow. We usually have privet and then tallow. We'll go into our little dearth. We have a lot of other things, but those are our main flows. And go into summer, and early July we still was having a good amount of stuff coming in, but I think in mid July it really just went down, and of bees bringing in nectar, and I can really tell that right now. Luckily, I haven't had any robbing or any problems like that. I've just been kind of keeping a watch on it.
We've had so much rain here, our nectar flows keep getting washed out. I mean, I had a pretty good year. I started off a lot of brand new frames to get drawn, so I didn't figure out to get a honey crop at all just because all that wax needed to be drawn. But we hit hard enough. I actually got all my wax drawn, and I ended up taking off multiple supers.
Mhm.
So it actually worked out better than I thought. But still, it would have been better if the rain would have cooperated. But I mean, I
Mhm.
can't complain. Everything's alive. Everything's drawn out. Things are looking good. So, and so I'm not in the honey business. So if I get a box or 3 boxes, it doesn't really matter to me. So it's not like my livelihood's based off the honey. So as long as the bees get enough to take care of themselves, that's all I really care about.
Yeah. Yeah, Tim and Hannah, they're pretty near down here. We haven't had much nectar at all. A good bit of pollen, though. Yeah, because down here, I don't know about you. I was going to ask that, too, because right now we have a good amount of pollen coming in, more than really the bees know what to do with. It's just been not really a lot of nectar out there. How about, have you been experiencing that, or is it just no
No,
nectar pollen?
up here, I have to really watch my hives. I get pollen bound fast in the early spring.
Hmm.
It's common for me in a 10 frame brood chamber to have 3 to 4 frames of just solid pollen. I'm always having to move pollen up and sometimes just take it out and get rid of it because they pack so much into it they just run out of room to lay. But this time of year, there's a little bit of pollen, a little bit of nectar coming in. I've got a bunch of really big Vitek out in my yard that I planted years ago. They're still flowering, but you can see they're starting to really slow down. So I bet in the next week or so, if I don't have rain, everything's going to be pretty well dried up.
Hmm. So tonight on the title, as you can see, our main topics I kind of want to get into is your business. Some things that you do. If you could just share with us a little bit about that.
Yeah. Also, everybody, excuse me. I'm starting to get kind of sick, so I'm trying to keep my throat wet here. Um, so I don't even know where to start. So in terms of business, so I've started. Let me back up. So my family, we've been doing manufacturing since '88. So I was 7 years old when we started doing this, and we have multiple product lines we've been doing over the years. And we're always looking for something to incorporate that will work out with the timing because just like all businesses, we have busy seasons and slow seasons, and the beekeeping calendar happens to work out really nicely to fit into our other seasons. So I can use machines and other things in the off seasons where it doesn't interfere with the rest of the business. So about 5 years ago or so, I started trying to play with some designs of some frames. Um, I hate building frames. I've always hated building frames. Fixing them, wiring them, cleaning them. It's just the worst part of beekeeping for me. But I've never liked plastic frames. They've always had issues of having too many places for beetles because here we're still really in big high beetle country. It's a big problem for us. They're always really flimsy. And I'm a rough person when I'm beekeeping. I mean, I'm not gentle with things. So I started trying to make some different designs of something just personally for me. Did a lot of 3D printing, trying to figure out things that worked, things that didn't work. Um, and it's kind of tricky because I run small cell bees. So I'd have to raise standard cells to make sure things would work for both. And after about 5 years of trial and error, I kind of came out with a design I was happy with. That was a compromise of, as many of the good things as I could get without very many of the bad things. And, had some molds built, started production. Now we're selling them. It's nothing that's going to make you rich. If you're in a business, you need cash flow. So it's a good product to fill in gaps to help generate cash flow. If you go into developing a bee product to be rich, good luck. It's a niche market. It's a good market, but it's niche. Um, one of our businesses is in the pet industry, and that market compared to bees are peanuts. But it's a good stable market, and there's some innovation in it. It's hard to get into the products in beekeeping because, I mean, how many different ways can you make an extractor, or how many different ways can you make a box or a frame holder? I mean, you have limitations to a point, and there's certain things that no matter how you make it, you're not going to be able to make it cheaper or better than something else that already exists. So there's kind of a bottleneck there.
Mm-hmm.
So it becomes a challenge. Just like when people look at the frames I make, the biggest thing is the price and the weight. But I'm building frames to be like I would want them. I'm not building them to be as cheap as I can get them. So they're a little heavier. I'm using higher end materials, so they're a little bit more expensive. But I already know I'm in the little niche market. I know I'm not selling to commercial beekeepers because the weight of them, you're never going to make a full truck full of those frames that go to almonds. There's just too much weight. So it's definitely a hobbyist kind of slash middle-sized sideliner product. So, anybody ever thinking about getting into making a product like that, you have to really think about your target audience, and kind of everything's based off that.
Mm-hmm.
It can be it can be a grind. I just put it that way.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, it's working for yourself is not fun
Yeah.
sometimes. Um, like I've been here since 6 o'clock this morning. I just came out cutting tables out of the wood room for the school side of the business. You're working 7 days a week, grinding all the time. Then like here, I'm the only beekeeper, so we have all the bee conferences and the bee shows, answering questions, explaining your product to people. And if you're kind of doing it on your own, I mean, you're doing everything. So it's one of those other things to keep in mind. You got this great idea, but somebody's got to explain it to people. Somebody's got to make it. Somebody has to sell it. And sometimes you are manufacturing. You're the sales guy. You're the question guy. You're the freight figuring guy. Um, so sometimes it can be hard if it's like your side job. This is like my side job inside of my real job.
Mm-hmm.
That's how I kind of look at it. And you know, be prepared. Not to make profit. I'm not going to be profitable for years. We've spent so much money on equipment that basically any money that comes in that's profit is going to paying bills for years now. So you have to kind of keep that in mind too.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, I could go off into so many tangents. I don't even know where to go next, really. Um, yeah. So, yeah, like I don't know. Anybody have any questions about that? It's probably easier for me to answer them than just to ramble on and on.
Yeah, I get you.
But if you're making a product, if you're manufacturing a product, if it's small enough that you can 3D print them and make a good quality 3D printed part, if you can do that, that's the way to go to get started. Um, a lot of those times you can do them in your house. You can make your little print farm up. Um, Printers are relatively cheap for the good quality that they're making now. Say I do a lot of 3D printing for my prototyping and my sampling, but the type of product I make, it's not feasible to 3D print them. It would take way too long and they wouldn't be strong enough.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of people can buy, $2,000-3,000 printer and make a nice little niche product and sell some on the side and, pay a bill here or there. If here at our company, we've been doing injection molding for years, so I already have multiple sizes of injection machines. So basically, all I had to do was have the molds built once I did all the designs. And you don't have to be an engineer to do it. I mean, I'm self-trained, self-taught CAD. Helps to have kind of a 3D visual type background. If you can visualize things, it's way easier to draw and wear in CAD. Um, but I worked for a mold maker, did all my own drawings, got everything patented, trademarked, all that good stuff. And then basically we're out the money for molds. And it helps. There are good mold makers and there's bad mold makers, so it helps to know somebody in that industry to kind of help guide you. Luckily, we know a lot of people in manufacturing to connect this to some good people. And if I had to take out loans and buy all the machines and everything from scratch, there's no way I would ever be able to do this because a bank would not give me that kind of money. I
Mm-hmm.
wouldn't have the kind of collateral for that. I mean, we make 8 different kinds of frames, and depending on what frame you're looking at, let's just say I wanted to only make one kind of frame and that's it. So I needed one mold, a machine big enough to shoot it, the dryers. I don't even know what the minimums on materials are. Forget for plastics and colorings and things. I'm easily out $250,000 to try to make that one size frame.
Mm-hmm.
We're starting off 8 of them, and I already have all the machinery. When we buy material in truckloads to get a little bit better pricing. So there are options out there if you have a good idea for a product that you can take it to other businesses whose whole business is to just run parts for you, and you can do all the packaging and shipping, but they charge a premium for it.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't afford to have somebody else shoot my parts for me because I'm not making massive margins on this as it is. Um, so if I was to say there's a guy that does that as a business that I know, if he made my frame for me, I would probably have to charge double what I already charged just to be able to make a profit and be able to have dealers get a cut on their end.
Mm-hmm.
So making in the bee industry, making big things is a really big risk. Making small things that you can do yourself, especially in 3D printing or maybe welding things in your garage and take them somewhere locally to have them powder coated or plated or whatever. That's a lot more realistic, kind of feasible way to start out.
Right.
And as you kind of build up and kind of squirrel away some money, you can grow and grow. Um, really, don't take this as gospel or anything, but from my point of view, there's 2 ways you can do business, and we've all seen businesses that do it both ways. You can try to go really fast, get a lot of product out there, but by doing that, you usually have to take on partners and debt. And the way we've always done it, it's our family business. We control everything. There is nobody else outside. If I want to do something, it's basically, if it's bee related, it's conversation between me and my dad generally. And it's like, do we think this is a good idea? Yes or no? If we both agree, we do it. If we disagree, we don't. It's just kind of how it is.
Mm-hmm.
And so we do the low and slow model. Every year you upgrade a little machinery, you add a little bit of this. Every 2 or 3 years we're paying something off. It's just a nice continual slow growth where you don't get yourself a massive debt and in trouble, and you don't have to bring on any investors. That way, nobody else has any say in anything that you do.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, if you can do that, that's the way to go. But sometimes, that's not for everybody. You might have a great idea, and a little infusion of cash can really blow it up. I mean, everybody's seen Shark Tank. Uh, I watch Shark Tank and laugh a lot. 'Cause I see things that people bring in and the way they talk and deals, and it's just kind of funny. Um, but those things happen.
Yeah. Tom and Melissa said, "I'm sure it's a risky business by itself. Obviously, you have multiple product lines."
Oh yeah, I mean, let's say if you're trying to do it as a main business, if you just start out like us with the frames, you better be single and living in an apartment with no furniture and eating ramen noodles because it's rough. like I say, we do this as an additional product line. So like right now, I'm building up frame inventory for next spring. So we're out the money for all the raw materials that we have to run right now and store. And people really don't think about what's involved. We're paying for raw materials, boxes, labels, labor, wax. We're going to pay for 5, 6 months worth of that and just stick it in a warehouse. And it's not going to go anywhere. And we just have to sit there and the money's gone.
Mm-hmm.
So we're doing that now. So when bee season gets busy, that's slow season for our school line. And I have seats and backs that go to chairs for kids and parts to make for tables and chairs. I can be making that while the bee season's busy and we're selling inventory. And yeah, I see Tom's there storage. Yeah, our building is about 63,000 square feet and things are stacked, multiple stacks high to the roof, and we are already out of room.
Wow.
You always think you have room until you store things and then you don't.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, even if you're doing something at home in your garage and some printers, you've got to store all that stuff somewhere. All that raw material, all those finished products, all your bags or labels. So think if you start doing things like that, think about do I have an extra room? Do I need to put up a little shed? To put things in. It's just things you don't really think about ahead of time,
Mm-hmm.
and you don't get to go home and escape. Um, you all work's always on your mind, just because you know you're everything falls back on you all. So here it's our family's business. So here we have me, both my parents, my sister-in-law works in the office. My wife and my sister were smart and got tired of putting up with all of us, and they left years ago. And some of our kids, like my oldest kids in college, they'll work summer jobs. But all those people, depending on how the business is doing, all their livelihoods are based on what you're doing. And if you mess up and cost yourself a lot of business from self-inflicted wounds, you're affecting everybody's paychecks and them feeding their family and paying their bills. So, like like tonight, I've been here since 6. I'll be here to 9 or 10 tonight. There's tons of times I'm here 70, 80 hours a week. We're on salary. We don't get paid extra to do any of this. Anybody that works for us gets overtime, but the rest of us, we come in and do what we have to do until it's done.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so um, I'm 44 going on 80. Uh, my body and joints are just falling apart. If I sleep 5 hours a night, most days I'm doing really good. It's part of the grind. And every
Yeah.
time I go to a bee conference, I like going to bee conferences, but man, when I get back, there's a week's worth of work waiting on me. I was still going through emails today from 2 weeks ago trying to get caught up on stuff because every time you turn around, somebody needs something and pulls you away. So yeah, it's like everybody thinks. A lot of people on here probably know better, but people think, oh, you do your own business or family business, you make your own hours, you make all this money, and no, you work all the time, and you probably make less than everybody else in the end.
Yeah.
But
Someone said, I never wanted a business partner. I've never seen the benefit.
yeah, excuse me. It depends on the business. I mean, um, I know like commercial beekeepers, that partner up. They're both bringing things to the party. One's better on the business end, one's better on the beekeeping side, and it works really well. Sometimes you have partners that are just for straight cash infusion. They're just silent. They just want their cut. And if you have somebody like that, depending on who it is, they want to see results. They want to see numbers. So if numbers aren't growing, they're not happy, and that can become a problem. Or if you just end up starting with somebody because that's the way to go. If you can pull your resources and that's how you can get started. If you butt heads down the line, you know, people you've been friends with for decades, it can get real messy. I've seen that happen a lot. Um, I'm not going to say it doesn't always end well, but if you don't have to take on a partner, it's nicer not to have to. Um, Definitely, it is nice being able to dictate what you want to do when you want to do it. But then that comes back to when bills are due, and you know orders get slow, that also comes back on you too.
Hmm.
So, everything, it's got its pluses and minuses. It's just like everything else. Um,
Tom Lissa also said running a business is not for the faint of heart or for someone who wants to work 8 hours a day.
that's definitely for sure.
Hmm. So my next topic. So we kind of emailed about this chat, some things we could talk about. I have some other topics later. Is kind of how you run your apiary. How do you run your apiary? Treatments, manage your bees, those type of things for
Well,
you.
I'm pretty different than most people around here. So I used to go to the bee club meetings, and then after a few years, I just stopped because I do it so differently. It usually becomes more hostile than anything. Um, so so first, I keep Russian bees. They're Russian mutts. They're not purebreds. I started with purebreds. Let me back up. When I first started beekeeping, I got a nuke of bees from an old man that's not around anymore, and they were Italians. I didn't know any better. Everybody in my club was using Italians. That's just what I got. After those first couple of years, I learned that Italians are not good for the kind of beekeeping style I want. They're prolific. They make lots of honey, but I call them dumb bees because in our climate here, it doesn't matter if there's a dearth or not. They just lay and lay and lay, and I don't want to have to constantly feed bees and keep up with them and worry about swarming. So a friend of mine is a Russian breeder. I got some bees from him. I've read up on some of the Russians and their characteristics, and I wanted to see what they're like. And man, I love Russians for what I do. And say I keep mutts, so I let them locally mate just with everything that's around, just whatever's surviving. That could be somebody's whatever breed they have, bees they just bought this year, wild bees, whatever. I don't do any artificial insemination, and I don't buy any queens and bring them into my yard unless every so many years I might buy a purebred Russian from my breeder friend just to get some more Russian drones running back in my area to kind of bump that gene up a little bit. But I never know the blend of what's in them, so I don't know if that does any good or not. So I keep Russians. I also do small cell, which it's a bad name for it. It's not really small cell. I wish they would call it natural cell because that's closer to the cell size that bees naturally are or were in the wild. And then I'm also completely treatment free. The first couple of years, I used um, I'm just blanking out, what do you call them? Essential oils. I did some essential oils, so like soft organic type treatment. I've never used a commercial product treatment at all. So after those first couple years, of doing it the essential oil way, I just started, and nobody get offended. This is my personal opinion. This is how I keep bees. It's not for everybody at all. But from all my science background, I just kind of started looking at the way keeping them with treatments for me was, and it just didn't make any sense to me. I wanted to do more of the let nature be nature. Um, I'm very much zoology, biology, evolutionary biology, genetics. That's kind of my field. Um, so I was wanting to try to get back to the parasite host kind of equilibrium. Just that's how it is in most things in nature. So you have ticks. Ticks have hosts, but when ticks fill up, they're released. If everything stayed on all the time, you would kill your host, and killing your host isn't beneficial to the thing preying on it. There's a kind of a balance, and over time, things that eat too much or don't eat enough, things die off and breed, and you kind of get a good balance. And that's what I was trying to do with my bees, trying to get a good balance of bees that could handle mite loads and mites that would naturally go for their natural targets. So, from the way I looked at it, and I've done a lot of reading with other natural beekeepers and treatment frees, and say this is just the way I do it. So if you're a larger operation or commercial, or you make a living at this, making honey, you probably can't keep bees like I do because, like I say, I'm not worried about the honey. I'm not paying bills. If I'm running 2,000 colonies to try to do it the way I do it, if, if it was even possible, I think you'd have to have such a large workforce that you would never make money. You would always be in the negative. So this is me not caring about honey, hobby size, backyard, um, nobody commercial around me. Just kind of keep all those things in mind.
Hmm.
Um, so the way I do it is I use small cell, and I used to run standards to begin, but I don't anymore. So small cell to me gets the bee back closer to their natural size, because I don't know if everybody knows this or not. You know, back way when they were trying to get bees to be larger to have a long enough proboscis to work red clover. That's what initially made them start trying to make bigger cells, because bees' body cells are based, or body size is based off the cell size that they're developed in. So you make a foundation with a bigger cell, you get a bigger bee. Just kind of like when you see your drones, that bigger cell makes that bigger drone body size. So they kept upsizing the cell size. They finally got to the 5'4" range, and it didn't really work. I mean, the bees got bigger, but the proboscis, they never got long enough to really work it right. And just you get back into business. What's more cost effective? You already have all these people using like a standard 5'4" foundation. You've already got all the rollers made to roll all the wax, all the equipment made. Is it cheaper just to keep using what that you're using because it doesn't really hurt anything? Or are you going to spend all the time and money to go backwards again? So the big stuff they had just became standard. And before we had mites and things over here, it didn't really cause a problem. It was fine. That's how things were done for hundreds of years. Introduce Varroa to us. Well, now we've got a bee that's unnaturally large for the workers. Varroa, they're, however you say it, they're wired to look for drone cells because that has a larger volume, a longer gestation period, gives them more time and food resources to reproduce. Well, if we have a worker that's abnormally large, it's a little harder for them to differentiate between this bigger worker and this big drone. So you tend to get, mites into your workers where it causes problems. So I use small cell to try to make the drones be able to differentiate more between the two cell sizes. A lot of times you hear people talk about small cell and they only talk about, oh, well, the thinking is, they hatch a little sooner, so there's less time for the mites to reproduce. That's really not why we do it. We do it because we want that vast difference in the cell size to help the drone, or to help the mites be able to pick the drones out more easily. So if I can shift my Varroa load more to the drones,
Hmm.
I could care less if it damages 90% of my drones. And I run 2 drone frames in every single brood box. So I have plenty of drones to burn. If you let bees naturally foundationlessly draw, they'll make up to 20% drones during peak mating season anyway. So they can devastate my drones and I could care less as long as they stay off my workers in mass.
Hmm.
And then by doing small cell, I also get more workers in the same box. So like on my frames, the difference between a deep small cell and a deep standard cell is about 1,500 cells a frame. So I'm running 15,000 more worker bees in a single deep box. I am losing some of that because I'm switching out with drone frames, moving things around. But there's that potential. I have multiple thousands of more workers that can be able to be bred, plus basically targets to attract mites away from them. And that's just kind of how I run my bees. And you know, you can pull the drone frames and freeze them. I don't even do that. I let them hatch. Let the mites hatch with them. I see it as if I'm pulling out drone frames and freezing them, I'm killing the mites that prefer drones, and I'm leaving behind the mites that prefer workers or pick the workers. So I want the mites that, because mites reproduce copies of themselves. So I want the mites that tend to go to drones naturally. I want to keep those in higher numbers in my hive to put pressure on the ones that don't, because I could care, I don't care how many of them mate and hatch because they're still going back to my drone. And that could cause a little higher viral load. I don't know, but my bees seem to handle it just fine. And it may just be because of the way I bred them over time. They've kind of, balanced out with them. I mean, I really don't know that part of it for sure. I just know they might survive. Um, doing treatment free like that, It's a rough way to go. Um, I tell people first year, if you want to try it, don't learn how to keep bees, learn how to make bees. Make yourself 10 or 15 colonies a few years down the road before you try it, because most likely you're going to lose 80 to 90% of your bees the first year because you've got to find a genetic combination for your area that works. So I think I had a couple of years in a row where I lost all but one or two, bred off the survivor, lost all but one or two, bred off the survivors. And usually year 3 to 4 is when things kind of turn. And now, if I lose a hive at all, I'll lose one, usually over the winter time. Generally, it's because they went in too small. Or every now and then you'll just have one that mated with a bad combination of stuff, and you can tell they're not going to work out pretty early on, and they usually don't ever make it after that first year. Um, but like right now, I'm pretty hands off. If I'm not started a new hive where I'm having to draw a lot of frames out and really like manage it, if it's a hive overwintered and it's established, I may only look in it 4 times a year. I go out, coming out of the winter time, going into spring. I actually look for my queen and get down to the brood box, make sure everything looks okay. In terms of any kind of disease, I mean, I'm still making sure I don't see any kind of diseases, things that could be spread. If everything looks good, I pack them away. I know when the flow is getting ready to start. I'll put 1 or 2 boxes on, part way through the flow, take the lid off, look in. If they're already to the top working, they need more boxes, drop the lid back on. And then when it's extraction time, I extract. And then I try to leave them alone all summer because I'll get massive robbing if I mess with them too much.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Check them again for that fall flow. Maybe look at them going into the wintertime just to look for any signs of diseases or issues again. And that's pretty much all I'm doing. I mean, I go weeks and weeks at a time where I look at the entrance. You can tell a lot by the entrance what's going on. Um, I don't use any kind of internal feeders because first I have sugar ants are really bad in my area. And you'll get ants into everything.
Oh
But
yeah.
I want to see what my bees are taking without having to open them up all the time. So I use Boardman feeders, even though they're not the greatest thing to use, especially for new beekeepers, because you'll have all kinds of little robbing issues. But I use Boardmans on one side, and I make a block basically to fill the gap up, and I leave a little, maybe 2 inch wide entrance on the other side, and that's my entrance size I use all year long. I never take it out, never move it, and I just kind of leave them alone, let them do their own thing.
Yeah.
You um,
Awesome. So my next question for you is it's a general question as every beekeeper because every beekeeper has a different way of keeping their bees, which I really think is really awesome to kind of chat about and see what beekeepers do differently, how they do it. Might not work for everybody,
sure.
but it's interesting to see kind of how each beekeeper does their things and kind of how they keep their bees out. I find that very amazing. That's why I do these chats. So my real quick question for you is: what is your favorite thing and your least favorite thing about keeping honeybees?
Least favorite used to be, like I said, building frames. It's awful.
Mm-hmm.
Now that I make my own frames, the thing I like the least right now, extracting honey. I
Yeah, that's
hate
that one.
I hate extracting honey. Doesn't matter if it's 1 box or 20 boxes. It's a pain. It's a mess. It's just I hate it.
Yeah.
Uh, uh, Now things I like the most, you know. So I like to make things. I like to build things. So bees are like little living Legos for me, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
There's
Oh, yeah.
it's kind of like an ant farm you can actually manipulate. It's these little things in their life, which kind of gets my animal fix. But I like to build and tinker, so it's like little building blocks. It's like living Minecraft, I guess. They're really neat. I don't sit around and just by the entrance and watch them all day or anything. But I think it's interesting getting to learn all the little nuances of their behaviors and their sounds, and then you're getting to add things and watch them construct and build things. Um, that's the neat part of it for me. Um, but like I say, I just yeah, it's just they're like little living Legos. It's the best way I can describe it.
Mm-hmm. But whenever you're talking about your least favorite thing about honey extraction, and actually last week on my live stream somebody said the same thing. So I think upon most beekeepers, that's probably the most
Yeah.
common answer is honey extraction. Yeah, for me too, kind of is. I mean, it can be rough. I harvested maybe 7-10 gallons of honey, and it was really a pain to do so. It's just hard. For me, I extracted outside, and it was in late July down here, which is pretty similar to y'all. So you can
Yeah.
probably imagine how much bees got to the extractor. Luckily, I had some rain come through, which kind of helped me out. A lot of people mentioned that as well. It kind of helped me out avoid even worse problems. A whole bunch of robbing frenzy or something. But thankfully, I was able to extract everything, get everything done. Lost some bees. Some of the bees did get into the extractor,
Yeah.
unfortunately, but not too many. It could have been more.
Yeah, me, I did. So I did. I usually extract around the 4th of July weekend, just because I generally will make myself take like a 3-day weekend just for that purpose from work.
Hmm.
I do mine at night, so I pull during the day, stack them up in the garage, and then at night I'll open up the garage door and turn on the headlights of my truck, and then twist all the boxes, and all the little loose bees I missed will pretty much come out and fly out of the garage, and then I extract at night. So I'm out there all night long. It's still getting hot and sweaty, but at least I don't have to worry about bees coming back in.
Hmm.
And this year I had all that stuff pulled and 3 boxes in. My motor on my extractor burned up. So I just called it quits after about 15 gallons and took the boxes back out and said, "Y'all have at them," and threw them out there. And like I say, I'm not worried about the honey, so it didn't hurt my feelings that I wasn't up all night long, doing it.
Yeah.
I kind of stunk that I went through all the trouble to pull all that off. I mean, I could have saved myself a lot of work, but it is what it is.
Hmm. Well, if y'all would please make sure to click the thumbs up, folks who's watching, and if you have any questions, feel free to put them in the comment box, and we will answer them if you have any. Since you've been keeping bees for a little bit, 13 years, is that correct?
Yep.
13 years. I've been keeping bees for probably about eight years. I would say 2017. So yeah, 5 years more than me. So that's pretty cool. So what are some lessons, some things that you have learned while keeping bees in your journey?
Oh, that's a good question. Uh, Definitely work with them and not against them. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
if they're not in the mood to be messed with, unless you just have to be out there, leave them alone. Um, Learned sometimes you have to work them in the rain, and that stinks, but sometimes you have to do it. I had a big burst come through on me a little while back when I had a bunch of stuff opened up, and they were not appreciative of it. Um, and I know a lot of people like to work about stuff, but always wear a veil. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I think I will not. I know too many older beekeepers that wear an eye patch, and you ask them what happened, and oh, I got stung in the eye. Can't see anymore. And like, oh, do you wear a veil now? No. It's like that's the one thing I don't want stung is my face. And like I
Yeah.
told you before that started, I got stung right here last night, just walking, not doing anything to bees. One just didn't bounce off me right and stung me, and thankfully I wasn't looking to the right, or that would have been my face. Um, so now if I'm weed eating or anything in the garden, I'm fully suited up. I don't even want to
Oh,
take the
me too.
risk. I can mow in front of them and not worry about it, but not weed eating.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Same here.
You learn that everybody does everything differently. I mean, there's only a few rules in beekeeping that really apply to everybody. Things like bee space, you can't really fake bee space. It is what it is. But there's not much really. There's not a whole lot else other than bees lay eggs and cells. I mean, there's so many different ways that you can do stuff.
Oh yeah.
Um, there's there's not that many ways that are just really wrong. I mean, there's obviously some really bad ways to do some things, but everybody's got their own way of doing it. And like I say, if you go to club meetings, and it happens a lot, especially me being like small cell or treatment free. That's the naughty words in bee clubs. So a lot of times I go to meetings, I just keep my mouth shut. I just listen. It's not worth somebody asks you how you keep bees, you might mention it, but it's not worth getting in an argument about. It's just stupid little things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Going to conferences, I mean, I'm not going to lie to people. I'm honest about it. People ask what I do and how I keep bees, and I'll just tell them. That's just how I personally do it. I'm surprised at how many other beekeepers go, you know what, I do too, but I'm not going to say that to anybody. It's like if you
Mm-hmm.
tell them first, they'll admit to it, but they've had the same experiences. Um, Especially like in North Carolina, those areas, there's a lot of people that I talk to that do things like I do, but around here, it's not a thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because there's a lot of different ways of doing things. People have their
Oh,
own ways of doing things. I have my own way of doing things. I always try to try new things. I'm always open to try new things. One thing for me that I do different than a lot of beekeepers in our little community is not test as much for mites, because a lot of people on my YouTube channel, on my community, they'll test, treat test or whatever, and I don't do that as much. I still do, sometimes. I just don't do it as often. I'm gonna be honest. I do treat some. I just don't over treat them. I don't like to do it like multiple times a year. I would say maybe once a year is good enough for me. Or maybe twice. I would say probably going into fall for me is when I most likely do it. But I
you,
don't
you do
really.
you do more of a if they need it, you'll do it kind of a thing.
Right.
Yeah,
That's kind of what if they need it, if they need feed, I'm going to feed them. I'm not going to feed them just for no reason. And
sure.
I would say intentional beekeeping, is trying to be have an intention for what I'm doing. Not trying to get into bees for no reason, inspecting colonies for no reason. I've had used to, and I still do sometimes, get have a way about of going into bees too much for no reason, but I've gotten much better at that, and just try to be intentional and try to do things if they need it. If they need to be treated, if they're um, unhealthy, I'm gonna treat them. I just don't test as much, as some beekeepers do. I'll just treat most times in fall. Hit the mite count down a little bit. Go into winter. I guess I really only use like Apivar and Apigard. I really still not 100% sure, but I did treat with Apigard. I can't really remember when it was. It was sometime in August or sometime around that time. It seemed like whenever I used that treatment, I had a good amount of queens die. I don't know if it's something that is connected, but I've just been kind of thinking about that. I could have done, I might have put it in too hot a temperatures or something. I don't know. It might just be a coincidence, but I just kind of haven't used Apigard, since then. I haven't had really any queen issues since that. So maybe it's something, maybe it's not.
I heard somebody in the chats that were last week talking about that, and I don't remember which one it was that directed you to go. But somebody was having that same problem. They thought they figured out why, but I couldn't tell you what the answer was now. But you're not
Mhm.
the only one. I think that's
Okay.
something about maybe the temperature, the timing. There was something with it that they thought may have caused that. I
Yeah.
say I'm not since I don't use treatments. I know about as much as what the label says, like how to apply it,
Right.
but I don't have any experience with it to know. Like I say, I'm like you. The mite checks. That's what gets me in trouble because usually people ask me what my mite count is. Like I haven't done a mite count in probably 7, 8 years.
Mm-hmm.
Just like because I tell them like why. I mean, it doesn't mean anything to me. I'm not going to do anything. And it blows people's mind and they think I'm lying about it. But when I used to check my best hives, because you have to think how I'm keeping bees. I'm keeping a lot of drone frames, so I'm going to have a lot of mites on my drones. If it's like a normal sample, if you have like more than three treat, I'd have mite counts that are like 72, 78. And those are my best hives. They're blowing and going because they weren't hurting my workers. So I can't really use the mite count to really tell me anything just because of the
Mm-hmm.
way I keep bees. It doesn't mean the same thing as somebody that does it the standard way. So
Mm-hmm.
there's really no reason for me to open up a hive and disturb them and get into all that because it's not going to do any good for me. Um, but if I need to do a count to show somebody how to do one as an example that wants to learn how to do it, I mean, I'll go in and do it and show them. Um, but for me personally, I don't have a reason to.
Mm-hmm.
But,
See if I have any more topics for the chat. I usually just keep some stuff in a note if I need to, just to kind of see, so I won't forget topics or anything. Because a lot of times I
oh,
will.
I'm bad at that.
Yeah. So I guess I'll ask this. I know you have a little, YouTube channel. I watch some videos from time to time. What kind of made you, make one and film some stuff on it?
Used to when I started doing the beekeeping, so I had my own channel, different name, different pages. I just did it because I thought it was interesting. I was trying to show more of the natural treatment free side of stuff and just how to do different things different ways. And then as I started getting more into the business part of it, I hit a lot of videos, a lot of things that don't really apply to this stuff. I kept a few up there just so I could add newer ones on, but I really haven't done very much with it. I kind of need to get back to it. Um, but trying to find videos to do things the way I wanted to do them. When I started doing those years and years ago, they didn't really exist, or there wasn't a lot of them. Um, there's way more beekeeping channels and chats and streams now. I didn't even know half these things existed the last year until I stumbled across them. And I think I was talking to Tom and said, "Hey, well, when are these things on?" And he gave me this long list, this like rundown of all these people that I didn't even know existed. If I know that stuff was around years ago, I probably wouldn't have even bothered with my channel. Because I could have probably found somebody to watch to kind of talk with about how I do things.
Mm-hmm.
It's just yeah, my channel, it's basically turning more into for the business. So I'll have more um, how to videos like how to incorporate drone frames in and how to convert in like the foundationless comb frames. It'll end up being more product oriented than like beekeeping probably from now on, because all you guys in your channels, you've got all that beekeeping chat and talking about methods and all that. That's all covered. So I'll just kind of fill in with how to use my stuff, because I have a lot of other products I've got drawings of and I'm tweaking things with that are non-frame related but still in the beekeeping realm. But it'll be a little bit of time before they come out, just because I need to get frames moving along and starting to pick up dealers and get some of those bills paying for themselves, so I can start letting out some of these smaller, more interesting little things I'm doing.
Mm-hmm. So I wanted to I guess we're getting kind of somewhat close to 8 o'clock. So here soon we'll wrap things up soon. But I just kind of wanted to kind of talk about one of your products, which is the Infinity Frame. I just kind of want to ask a couple questions.
Yeah,
So what kind of made you create it? I know earlier I think you said that you kind of wanted to make it for yourself, right?
yeah. I got one. I'll show you. I've got a little. I make a little half frame mating nuke. Um, yeah. So if anybody hasn't seen them, this is the little half width. This is a deep hive. But the reason I started trying to make something like this, like I say, I hate putting frames together, and I would drop heavy frames, and things would break, staples would rip out. I hate wiring. So originally, I was going to 3D print them for myself. And then I realized how big of a 3D printer you'd have to make a solid frame. So I bought some big 3D printers. And then I realized for the deeps, you still have problems fitting them on. So I would make them in two pieces. And, after realizing it'd take days to make a frame, that just wasn't realistic. So I just had this idea. I'm like, hey, we've got all this machinery. Maybe there's a market out there for them. I like say this design is for me. I've had another bee company. I don't know how to say this. I had another bee company's top person, I'll put it that way, tell me they like my frames, but man, they're just over engineered. They could be cheaper if they weren't so over engineered. I'm like, good. That is my goal: is to over engineer these to where you will never ever break them,
Mm-hmm.
because I don't want to build and clean and fix things. I also don't want to buy things and replace them.
Right.
I've over engineered them, tried to get as many problems as I could. No hive beetle hiding places, nothing twisting and warping, because I like to just dunk my frames in boiling water to clean them. So having to make them that rigid. Watching my own bees communicate. My Russians love to build tunnels and dive in and go back and forth. So I tried to put in all the little openings and pass throughs, give them places to move through and to help clusters move from frame to frame in the wintertime instead of having to break and go all the way over the bars. I was just trying to imitate what they would naturally do as best I could while still making something as indestructible as I could within reason. And, just trial and error and playing around with stuff over time. I can't tell you how many thousands of dollars I burnt through on 3D printing filament that's just gone right in the trash can. You'll spend 3 days printing something, put it in your hive, and go, that definitely didn't work, and just trash can. Every one of these little opening sizes and hole sizes, these have been multiple shapes and sizes and placements over time. Just trying to see how bees react to them.
Right.
What they fill in, what they tend to leave open. Just a lot of trial and error. And yeah, this is just kind of what I came up with. It's just no rhyme or reason. It's just a lot of tinkering, a lot of playing.
Yeah. Because a lot of other frames, like wooden frames, or I use mainly wooden frames. I have a couple plastic frames. I think the only plastic frames I have is drone frames, like 5 of them. But other than that, I just have wooden frames, and they don't last too long. They'll break, get really old, start cracking. I've had ones where they just get so propolized, the little top bar, when you press it up, that top snaps up from the side. I've had it happen multiple times on me, and it's always a pain to try to get it back in place and lift it all up, breaking things. And also I'm still using still use wooden frames, but it's interesting to see how you're doing it too. Even though it's more expensive, it lasts longer, so you're not having to replace it so much. You're probably putting more, money into it, replacing it more.
Yeah, depending on where you get them, I
Right.
think most wood frames, the plastic foundation, I've seen them like 4, 4.5. Just kind of depends where you buy them. The same equivalent deep frame of mine is like 7.25. So it's an investment up front, but the first time you break one and don't have to replace it, it's already paid for itself. And I designed them you can just clean them and re-wax them and, give them to your kids someday. They should just indefinitely last as long as you don't run over them with your car or something.
Right. Just
So
regular work.
yeah, it's an investment. I tell people, I'm going to try some out. Every year you cull some frames and you re-wax them or wire them and put them back in. It's like just, when you cull some frames this year, just get you, a 5-pack or a 10-pack and cull a couple out and throw a couple of these in. And over time, you'll eventually slowly, transfer everything over without it costing an arm and a leg up front. And you'll get to a point where you don't have to replace anything anymore and just
Mm-hmm.
clean it every so many years and slap some wax on and keep on going.
Mm-hmm. That's really cool. Yeah, so I guess we're getting pretty close to 8 o'clock. We'll start winding down. I appreciate everybody checking in tonight. We had some pretty good topics discussed tonight. Your background, some frames, how you keep bees, which is really cool. Because everybody has a different way of keeping bees. So I think we all should just respectfully, just listen to each other, see how we keep our bees. We have a lot of different ways of keeping honeybees. There's a lot of different methods, a lot of different ways. Treatment-free treatments. We're all trying to do the same thing, keep our bees alive. That's the main goal we do as beekeepers. So, thank you, Michael, for coming on tonight and spending some time on the chat. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me on.
Yeah, it's been
Appreciate it.
fun. It went by pretty fast.
Yeah, I did actually. I didn't realize it was already 8 o'clock. So
Yeah. Thank you all for watching the chat. Make sure to click that like on your way out. I greatly appreciate that. It helps the chat and the channel. Thank you all for joining. We appreciate y'all. Everybody, have a good night.